Bitch is a Bad Word podcast is for informational purposes only and reflects the opinions of the host and guests. It contains explicit content and discusses sensitive topics such as domestic abuse, sexual assault, and violence, which may be distressing to some listeners. Please take care of your emotional well-being while listening. While we strive for accuracy, we make no warranties about the completeness or reliability of the information, and any reliance on it is at your own risk. We do not endorse third-party views and are not liable for any defamatory claims. Listeners should conduct their own research and consult professionals before making decisions. If you or someone you know is in danger, please call 911 or contact the National Domestic Abuse Hotline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 800-799-7233 or text START, S-T-A-R-T, to 88788. We've got your back, besties. Caliber Studios has not independently verified the information you're about to hear. Welcome back, besties, to this episode of Bitch Sesh. We've got your new BFF, Whitney, from the Women Waken podcast, here to talk all things addiction specifically, but we're going to just unpack some things that we feel like you may be going through, you've reached out and talked to us about, and welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. We had so much fun recording for my podcast last week.
We did. We got a double dose.
Yeah.
Which is super fun. Yeah. No, you're great. And we could have talked for hours. Or we almost did.
So let's get it go. Let's continue it. Now we get a chance.
So I want to start with your story. And always the best place to start is at the beginning. So on your journey, how you started and then ending up here and then all the things in between.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll start by saying that currently in my life, I am a mental health therapist. So that's my profession. I specialize in addiction, eating disorders, substance abuse, trauma. And I am here today because I went through all of that. And I sought out therapy as a very lost 20-something, and I needed help. I needed guidance. I had absolute rock bottom self-esteem. I had just crippling insecurity. And I knew I couldn't live like that. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to, because in my 20s, I was drinking to excess. I would take anything I could to change the way I feel. I loved pills. I loved drugs, just whatever I could get, because I just couldn't sit with how uncomfortable it was, with how much I just hated myself. I could not find a way to accept myself. I grew up being bullied a lot from the time I was in about middle school. Was the first time I remember somebody called me ugly. And I was like, oh no, no, not that. Cause you know how when you're younger, you're not as self-aware. Mm-hmm. So you're like, I'm just a kid and people like me. But then the first time that people point out something about you that doesn't fit, right? It's like, you're weird, you're ugly, you're stupid, you're fat. It's like, no, don't let that be the case. And it continued. That was I remember the first time I heard it was 7th grade. And then it went all the way through high school and it just destroyed me. I didn't know how to reconcile that. I didn't know how to accept myself if I was going to be called something that I felt was so awful. And I didn't have a strong sense of, I would say, unconditional regard growing up. My parents were lovely in so many ways, but they also were very caught up in their own stuff. I grew up with a mother who had an eating disorder from the time she was 20. She had anorexia that she never really recovered from. So she was very fixated, a lot of compulsive behaviors around food, very, very thin, very restrictive. So she, when you're in that space, you have a very critical mind and eye for things. So I felt also I didn't know if I was fully accepted by my parents. So then by also feeling rejected by my peers, I had nothing to pull from to be like, it's okay. Who cares what these assholes say? I thought it mattered. I took what they said to heart and it destroyed me. So I made it through high school and I still was myself. I was a loving, fun person, but it's hard to get through life with no self-esteem because I was bullied so much that I just decided it's like if you can't beat them, join them. So I decided not to try to feel good about myself, but rather to just accept myself as like the ugly, worthless person.
Gosh.
And that's no way to live.
No.
So I would drink and use just to like numb that pain, but it does absolutely nothing to treat it. It just will take away or help you escape for a while, but it just leads you down a deeper hole. I had a horrific eating disorder for 20 years. It started when I was 14. And a large part of it was, seeing my mom. And she, anything over like stick thin was like, oh, you're looking a little heavy. And so I got these messages that like thin was good and anything else was bad. And I also was desperate to look a way that might be more appealing to people so people would stop making fun of me, but they never did. So it was just like a weird, like, like a perfect storm where it was just really hard to get through. So I got through high school. I wouldn't say that I just abused alcohol. Like I would get blacked out often, but I didn't see it as a problem, right? Because if you are like a partier in high school, that's what everybody does. Like you just try to get whatever alcohol you can get your hands on and chug it. And if you black out, it's funny. It's just what you do, right?
Right.
Very normalized. And same with college. So I went to college and it was interesting because when I went to college, the bullying stopped. For some reason, I don't know what the men in my high school had against me, but when I went to college, guys were like, "Hey, you're cute." And I was like, "No, no, 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 I'm not. I promise you I'm not." Like, don't, because it was so ingrained in my head.
Aw.
I was terrified of men. I did not believe anything nice that anybody said. I would seek out, and maybe some people can relate to this. I would like scan the room for somebody to not like me, to look at me weird, to say something bad. I would wait for that. And then as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, I knew it. I knew it. Like, I'm not good enough. Like, people don't like me because I was so used to it. Like, I just was so afraid of it, if that makes sense. Like, I would scan every environment for it. So it was rough. And I, again, like went through those years, I gained a ton of weight in college because I'd been bulimic during high school, but I let that go, which is great because it was terrible. It's terrible for your health. It's very dangerous to engage in binging and purging. But I still had such a crazy relationship with food and eating and weight. Like that was my number one drug, and then alcohol, and then anything else I could get my hands on. But it's just exhausting. And I want to say that to anyone listening who can relate, because many women struggle with eating disorders and body image issues. And it's exhausting. It's really exhausting. Like you want to just live your life, but I didn't know how. Like I would eat too much on the weekends and drink too much. I'd be like, okay, well then don't eat for a few days, but then I would it's just like this push and pull. And I had no idea just how to eat normally again and have a normal relationship with food. And yeah, it was exhausting. So by the time I got out of college and was in my 20s, I was tired. I was exhausted. I was drained. I wouldn't say I was actively suicidal, but I often fantasized about like, maybe it'd be just easier not to be here because, how I feel about myself is so awful and it's so miserable to live that way. And I don't know how I can ever make it like change that because it felt so, the way that I say it is the way I felt about myself, like the lack of self-esteem, it felt like it was in my bones. Like it wasn't just, a gentle feeling. It was so deep that I thought there's no way I could ever change this. But I eventually hit a point where I said, well, I have to try, because I can't keep going through life just assuming the worst and being so hard on myself and destroying myself through my eating disorder and drugs and drinking and all of that and just negative self-talk. Just the constant presence of that in my head was also just terrible. So I finally decided to go see a therapist. And I was like, maybe there's hope for me. And she was wonderful. But it was hard. I would leave the sessions being like deflated because I was like, I have so much work to do. I'm so far from where I want to be. And my saving grace was that I've always been a very determined and tenacious person. So even though I was suffering so much, I knew that somewhere out there was like this woman who was successful and assertive and had self-confidence and happy. I just knew it. I knew that that was possible. And so I really just invested myself fully in doing everything I can to become that person. And the first few years of that, I couldn't let go of the drinking and the using. I was like, in my 20s. Like, how am I supposed to not drink?
Mhm.
I won't be able to have fun. I won't be able to socialize. Like, I can't do that. But then when I decided to go to school and become a therapist, I started thinking more about the woman I really wanted to be. And I thought, if I become a therapist, I want to be someone that can speak from my heart and be at a place of peace with myself. Because that's what I want to offer others. Because that's what I never had, right? I never had that sense of peace and acceptance with myself. I had the opposite. I was totally at war with myself for years. And I realized, I thought, I don't know if I can be that woman and still drink for me. Because when I drank, that's when my demons would come up still. You can do all the therapy in the world, but if you keep going back to self-destructive behaviors, it's like, who's the guy that rolls the ball up the hill? Persiphus or
Mm.
do
Mhm.
you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about?
Yeah.
Greek mythology. It's the guy who's trying to roll it up the hill and it keeps rolling back. And for me, that was trying to heal while still using. I just couldn't do it. And not everybody's like that because not everybody has an addictive relationship with substances. But I did in terms of, or at least I would say I abused it, right? But I definitely had the addiction mindset of, because here's the thing about addiction that I want to offer to people. And we're going to get into it because it relates to your beautiful podcast, which is guess what's present in an abusive, toxic relationship? Addiction.
Mhm.
You can get addicted to that shit just like anything else. So I realized that what I liked about my addictions was it was my secret safe thing, right? When everything else in my world felt like I couldn't control it and I couldn't be, you know, sure that it would work for me. Like my addictions were my things that I could go to, whether it was my eating disorder or drinking, like I knew that was reliable. And again, to anyone listening who's stuck in that, it's important to give yourself that acknowledgement that the reason why, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it's hard to let go of an addiction, but one of it is because it becomes your companion. And it becomes your companion who is, I say reliable in quotes because it destroys you. It's not your friend. It's like that toxic friend that says, come on, just come hang out with me. It'll be great. And it is great until it's not.
Mhm.
And then you're like, fuck, I got to get away from this terrible, toxic person. And that's what an addiction is, but it's there. Unlike other people, you can go to the bar and know that you can get a drink and feel better.
Mhm.
And being able to let go of that means trusting that life in the universe will provide you with what you need without you having to try and micromanage it. It also means you're going to have to feel things that you've been avoiding by using. It's a whole big thing. That's why people like me are out there. There is hope. There is help. Again, anyone listening who needs that, who can help you through it. So I hit 29 and I was spiraling. I was living in Seattle for several years in my 20s. And I moved back home to California because I realized, well, if I get licensed, I'd rather be licensed in California because that's where I'll likely spend more time and makes more sense. So I moved back home with my parents to finish school. And that to me it felt like defeat. It wasn't. It was just a practical thing to do. But something about it, I was like, I'm still not where I want to be. I still feel like a mess. I was drinking way too much. I was, going home with people I shouldn't have been. I was doing stupid things when I drank. And I was getting to that point where like I didn't want to face anything. So I just wanted to keep going. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever been on a bender, but it's like you wake up the next morning, you're like, shit, that was a weird night. I think some weird things happen. I don't want to think about it. So I'm just going to get drinking again today. And I was on that ride for a while. It's just like total, you just don't want any accountability. You don't want to have to be responsible for your life or yourself. You just want to check out. Right.
Mhm.
And I knew I was going down a bad path because I was drinking and driving, all this stuff. And I was like, you're going to crash and burn if you don't do something. And so I finally had a night, and I was very fortunate in that those things did not happen to me. But I had a bad enough night where it was like, it was all put in my face, like what a illusion it is to feel good when you're using something, right? Like I remember this guy had asked me out on a date. This is the last night I ever drank. He asked me on a date. We had met like at a restaurant. He was like DJing there and he's like, oh, we should hang out sometime. So we go to this place called the Beach Boardwalk in California, in Santa Cruz. And he had asked me out, right? I was like, okay, this guy's interested. And we're going around. He has his arm around me and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, this is fun. And we're drinking. And then I look at his hand and he has a ring on his finger. And I was like,
On
what's
the
that?
finger?
On
On
the finger. I was like, what's that? What's that about? And he's like, "Oh, this is my promise ring." I was like, Promise for what? Like, what are you talking about?" And he's like, for my girlfriend." He's like, "Yeah, I have a girlfriend." He's like, "What, did you think this was a date?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did actually. You asked me out." And so that, made me feel shitty. I was like, "Well, then what is he doing?" And sure enough, like a few drinks later, his hand is now like rubbing my butt and like all over me. And I'm like, "So what about your girlfriend?" And he's like, "Well, I'm thinking about you right now." And I just sat there and I was like, "God, like, is this what I want? To go out and get drunk with men who will give me all the attention in the world for one night. And then, like Cinderella, I have to wake up and feel like a piece of shit."
Mhm.
And that's exactly what happened. I did not sleep with him, I'm happy to say. I went back to he was younger. He lived with like 10 guys. I was in this house, like a big beer pong party. And I asked one of the guys, I was like, "So this dude, he has a girlfriend." They're like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Is she cool?" And they're like, "Yeah, she's really cool." I was like, "Okay." And I was like, "I'm gonna go to sleep and I'm not gonna do anything with this guy who's being a dick." So
Mhm.
I wake up the next morning and sure enough, this guy looks at me and he's like, "You need to leave." He's ushering me out of his house because again, Cinderella, the carriage had turned into a pumpkin. I was just this girl that he was hoping to hook up with, didn't give a shit about. And I went to my car and I sat in there and my mascara was rubbed all over my face like the day after eyeliner. And I was like, "I am not going to be this. This is not who I'm going to be." And I drove home and I was sobbing and I was crying and I was like, "What the fuck am I going to do?" And that's when I decided to stop drinking.
Wow.
And it didn't get easy. Like that, that's where the battle really began because getting sober was gnarly, but I did it and things got better. I did have to hit rock bottom after that, where it was just like, they call it a dark night of the soul, if you've never heard that term. But it's a point in your life where you look at where you've been living from your ego versus your soul, and it kind of like comes to a head and you're like, are you on the path that you came here to live? And it's not a religious moment. I'm not religious, but it's spiritual. It's like I got caught up in all the fear. I got caught up in things that weren't true, and I decided they were true. It was never true that I was so ugly, that I wasn't lovable, or that I didn't deserve to be treated decently, like a human
Mhm.
being. Because I had decided that because I was treated that way, I was so much less than everybody else. So much. And so when you walk around life feeling like you're 6 feet below everyone else, it's tough. It's tough to not seek out something that's going to make you feel better for a little while, whether it's sex, men, drugs, food, anything to make you feel better. And so I hit that bottom and I was like, you need to figure out your value and worth free from whatever anybody thinks of you, based on just who you are and who do you want to be, and how do you learn to love yourself? And that's the journey I've been on ever since. And it's been 10 years since that day.
Congratulations. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I was 29 when that happened and I've come a long way and I'm happy to say that I am very close to being that woman that I used to envision.
I love that.
I have my own private practice. I've always loved to travel and explore, and I now live a nomadic life. I've traveled the country for several years now with my beloved soulmate pup, Audrey. I'm into 49 of the 50 states, just have to do Alaska. But the most important thing is I have peace. I have peace and I'm happy. Not all the time, we all have challenges, and I still get little dust ups of the same old insecurities, but they're like this big when they used to just literally knock me down. Like I was one of those people that if something happened that bothered me, I would just check out. It was so, that like friend where you're like, okay, what's wrong? Clearly something's wrong. That
Mhm.
was me because I didn't know how to sit with disappointment, with hurt. But now, like, it just isn't there. And I personally believe that when we release an addiction, it's almost like an exorcism because it truly is this energy that's built within us that's just very self-destructive and self-hating. And as long as that's living within you, it's hard to be healthy and happy.
Mm.
But as you begin to heal and address that and why it happened, how it happened, and the beliefs that keep it alive, you shift those beliefs and it just goes away. And it's a much more preferable way to live, to like yourself, to accept yourself, to be kind to yourself, and to not live in fear and to trust that you can make it through whatever might happen. So why not just enjoy what's right here?
That's so beautiful. And it's like going back to like your story of the guy that the last night of drinking, like had you hooked up with him, the same outcome would have happened. So like I want people to hear like I love that almost like it was like a test theory. Like he was going to usher you out one way or the other. You were either going to have a little less self-esteem or, like
Or a little more,
a little more.
dignity, not
Yeah.
much, but a little.
But it's like that's the thing. Like if you're in a place, so we talk to our besties and it's like I can 100% tell you that I found myself in very bad relationships because I didn't love myself and enough to set a boundary or be like, this is fucking bad behavior. This is bullshit. I won't do this. And you get yourself into trouble when you don't love yourself. So you find yourself in a situation that can be life-threatening, and you put yourself, in your practice and your experience, you've probably, and maybe even personally, or I mean, for sure, personally, the way you're sharing the story is like, we confuse how people are loving us, like the breadcrumbs for breadsticks or even baguettes, even whatever. Like, it's like, you have to love yourself because like the happy, healthy, I'm finding everybody I speak to, and I love everybody who's come on the show, but we all have a similar quality that we had self-esteem issues because a solid person isn't finding themselves in a relationship with somebody who's treating them like it just doesn't happen. So you have to work on understanding that if you are self-loathing or, not treating yourself, you're like ripe for the taking from somebody who wants to exert power and control over you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they know that it's so simple because they know that you will take what you can get in terms of love or interest or compliments, whatever it is. Men see that. They know when somebody is going to tolerate the least amount, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who's going to question themselves when they try to field a sort of manipulative statement or question, right? Because if you have somebody that's always going to take like things to heart, then they know that they'll always be off the hook, right? And that's kind of the nature of, somebody who has narcissistic traits is they will literally seek out prey in terms of who's someone who's pretty low down there. They're empathic, but they're also insecure. So they're not going to have the wherewithal, just like you said, when somebody is healthy, we call it and securely attached, a toxic manipulative person is going to feel like a toxic gas and they're going to be like, ugh, get that out of here. No way. No interest. Somebody who doesn't really like themselves and is insecure, it's going to feel very familiar and they're not going to notice it. They might not even smell it. And when they put them down, if you don't like yourself, then when someone doesn't like you, that feels right. That feels right. When you're not quite enough for somebody, when they make little remarks about how you're nothing too special, but you're like, yeah, okay, yes, that's true. And how could I get anything better? So this is all I really deserve is somebody who's going to treat me like this because I'm not that type of person that deserves true healthy love. And we might not think this consciously, but like you said, if you find yourself in a situation where somebody consistently insults you or puts you down and you're tolerating it, again, it's because you're comfortable swimming in toxic waters,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, like I always say, my situation was growing up. And so somebody who was like a little bit kind of crazy or like chaos, it felt like home. And my last relationship that was very bad, was so familiar at the beginning. And I was like, I guess it's chaos. I didn't mind the chaos. I fucking hate chaos, but it felt very familiar. So then I was like, well, this is like that. I felt like, well, this kind of feels familiar. So now I feel like this feels like love. And then I fell in love with this person. And so I fell in love with a person that then could do all the things they wanted to do. And I was like stuck in this, I'm in love with them, but shit, they're really not good. They're really bad to me. And Yeah, I want to understand that for people. Like if you're like you, and believe that I became addicted to the chaos, and I like rode the I was riding the ride, and then but if I questioned it, if I anytime was like, I don't like this, fucking sucks, they'd be like, oh, so let's use gambling. They're a gambler. If I went on the gambling trips, I was an enabler if it didn't go well. And if I said, I don't want to go on the gambling trips anymore, I don't want you to gamble, then I didn't love them. And I was like a joy sucker and a wet blanket, like, so you could, you couldn't.
And that's the exact thing, Lindsay, that we don't realize when we came from a chaotic upbringing and that feels familiar. We don't realize that that kind of treatment, bar none, no questions asked, is abusive. People who are in a healthy relationship don't speak to other people like that. They don't speak to their partner like that. They don't try to make accusations. They don't blame them. They have conversations. In a healthy relationship, you express, oh, I was really hoping you would come with me for this because I love being around you, but I understand if you have something else. And maybe if you miss a few, that's like, hey, can we talk about this? Because when you don't come, I don't feel supported. So what's going on for you that you're not wanting to come? Night and day from what you were experiencing, which is that, oh, okay, so you're not going to come. You show up, you're affecting this trip negatively. You're a pain in the ass to have around. Like, but we sometimes, it's like when I just had this vision in my mind, it's like a Nintendo game where you're constantly jumping over stuff. In a toxic relationship, you feel like I just have to get over this hurdle. Like he's mad at me because I didn't go, but once we'll figure it out. He doesn't hate me. He loves me. This is just like a little no. And you said it on my show. It's like the first time something like that happens, get out.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you can't always do that. And that's why I'm here. That's why you're here with your show, to support women who get dragged in and tied into these situations that can last for years. But if you have the mindset to recognize these when they first show themselves, please know that anytime that somebody talks to you disparagingly, they're not going to treat you well. They're not.
Mm-hmm.
A true loving partner is going to speak with you with kindness. They're going to be curious. They're going to want to have an understanding. And yes, we all get upset and frustrated at times, but that's very different than a calculated remark to make somebody feel bad or to question themselves, to tap into their insecurity, to tap into their questioning their worth, which is what people are doing when they make those kind of comments that your partner did, right?
Right. And tapping into your insecurity is huge, because that is like, when someone can do that to you and they can go into like to your most vulnerable part of yourself and weaponize it and use it to hurt you. I'm going to say it. It's fucking evil. It's not even just not nice.
Yeah. And we have to look at what evil means. And to me, evil is someone who truly, I feel they're disconnected. They've disconnected from their own sense of empathy and their emotional body. They're purely running on just ego. So they only see people as like, what could I make them do for me? How would this person work for me? They don't really even see you as a whole person. So evil to me is being able to act in a way that directly negatively affects someone and not feel anything as a result, but also like do it intentionally, like intentional cruelty, right? When somebody bullies someone to the point that they cry, how could you do that unless you were so separated from your own emotional body and understanding that you are okay with that? It's cruelty. It is evil. And again, you have to be aware that if you see it once, you're going to see it again. We'd love to think it's just like a fluke. Oh, he was just in a bad mood. We make excuses, right? Women are so good at that. We want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And especially nowadays where we're like, dating is a nightmare. I don't want to be on the apps anymore. This guy's good enough. I don't want to be too picky, right? And then a lot of women are like, I don't want to end up alone, so I'll take what I can get. But you deserve to be happy and healthy.
I met him at my daughter's college graduation. I pictured being in a fight with him. He was my daughter's boyfriend. 20 days later, he took her life when she tried to break up with him. When Dating Hurts is the name of my podcast. I knew I could not bring Kristen back, but believed I could help others who became tangled up in dating abuse and domestic violence. My guests are domestic violence survivors. Who knows more about the toxicity, the entrapment, devious manipulation, the loneliness, the pain and suffering than brave survivors who live to tell about it. Their stories are raw, intimate, plain-spoken, deeply personal. For many, this is the first time they've told their stories in one place. Today's survivors want current victims to know there are ways to achieve freedom. There is a process that's safe, that this can happen to anyone, and that you are not alone. Join me and my courageous guests on the When Dating Hurts podcast. It's a series of lives being saved.
Well, and I want to ask this question as a former addict, and I don't know if it's you guys. I don't know what the terminology is, but as somebody who was once an addict and someone who's a therapist, you hear a lot. I just had a woman on our show, and she was like, "Well, we were drunk when he did it. Oh, like his bad behavior would tick up when he'd been drinking, but like I had been drinking, so then maybe I really think that people don't talk about it enough. Like, did it get lost like in the drunkenness, or was the alcohol the perpetrator? And I want to know your thoughts.
Oh, I just don't believe that you can tease apart the two. I don't think you can ever excuse someone's behavior because they were drunk.
Thank you for saying it. Say it again for the people in the back.
Being drunk does not excuse anyone's behavior ever. Ever. It does not. It absolutely, because I'm going to tell you something. There's nobody who completely, I don't believe in the Jekyll and Hyde thing. I don't believe that somebody shows part of themselves that would never be there. No, they're still showing you themselves. Drunk or not, that's still you. And yeah, maybe it's bringing up their demons, but have you ever been around somebody that was totally drunk and like the sweetest person ever? Totally drunk and harmless? Like that, I don't know that anybody benefits from, over drinking that much, but you know what I'm saying? Like somebody who treats you poorly, you cannot excuse that. But also, like, if they are drinking like that, they probably drink like that often. It's usually not an isolated incident.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're going to excuse their poor behavior consistently over time. And let me tell you something else, is that you also have something to realize about addiction. What's going on for somebody that drinks to that degree, to where they're treating other people poorly, where their other side is coming out, is that addiction always has to do with conditionality. When we are addicts, we're seeking out something to change the way we feel because we feel we don't have it for ourselves. And it's always comfort or escapism. We want something that makes us feel better, to soothe the pain within us. Anybody who treats people poorly because they drink to that extent is in a lot of pain. And they've decided to take that pain out on others if they're the type that's abusive or mean. Mm-hmm. They don't want to have to feel it. They don't want to have to heal it. They don't want to go to therapy. They don't want to acknowledge it. They just want to push past it. And that's when it starts manifesting as abuse and cruelty under the influence. And it's not excusable. There's no excuse. And I will say this, I'm a big believer, and this is down the line. I know women listening to the show, it's more like you just need to get out of the situation. But ultimately, you can forgive people like this by understanding that they just do not have the tools to heal and do the work that they need to make peace with themselves. That person also, anyone who's abusive, hates themselves. You do not treat other people any differently than how you feel about yourself. You treat people how you feel about yourself.
You hear that, besties? That's big. That's big. They're not doing it. It's not isolated. I'm hearing you say they're not doing it because of the influence they were under. They're doing it amplified because that's who they are. And they are people who are suffering. They don't like themselves, but we don't, we ain't got time to be fixing everybody who doesn't love them. Like you got your own shit to fix. So as much as unless somebody is willing to take the accountability, as you're saying, and then that accountability action to change, but it's like, we've got two issues here. We've got somebody who has an addiction and a problem. And then we've got somebody who has an addiction, a problem, and who is abusive. Yeah. So we're like, this person doesn't necessarily need your time or forgiveness or patience while they work through that shit, because we're encouraging our besties on the show to leave the first time. Kids, married, no kids, whatever, leave the first time, because they're not going to change easily.
They're not. Not unless they change how they feel about themselves. And most of them don't believe they need to do that. And then you become the collateral. You become the one that experiences the repercussions of their anger. And here's the thing that happens with this cycle of abuse is that women take things to heart. So when a man hates himself enough that he rages against his partner and blames everything on them, that person will believe it. And they will believe that, okay, if I just do enough, they will love me. That if I love them enough and I do good enough and I'm the perfect partner and I do nothing wrong ever, then they will find peace and our relationship will be peaceful. But you don't realize that they are completely disconnected from the one thing that will help them change, which is going within and healing themselves. So rather than acknowledging that, we play this game of, okay, I'll do better. I won't do anything to upset them. I'll be, because then they say things to us like, well, you always do this. And we're like, oh, you're right. I do. Like, I'm the problem. You're not the fucking problem. You are not the problem. And here's the thing is that they want to make you the problem. And we also take it personally. The way that person is treating you is not personal. I know that when in the past, I had men that were like indifferent towards me, treating me like shit. I thought it was about me, had nothing to do with me. You only treat people that way when you can't accept yourself. When someone picks out your flaws and can't love you for who you are, it's because they can't do that for themselves. And again, women will take it personally. They're like, well, if I just lose some weight or look better or act better or I'm this, that, and the other thing, then they'll stop insulting me. They're never going to stop insulting you because that's how they've learned to live, is to project out, to be reactive to everything rather than going within, and they will always find something. Have you heard there are, models, celebrities, perfect looking acting women who are in abusive relationships and who get told that they're a piece of shit. But in our minds, we're like, no, I just need to make a little more effort on myself and this and that. There is never enough. You cannot be good enough for somebody because that has nothing to do with why people are abusive towards another. That in itself, the abuser is addicted to abusing you. You have to realize that. And you're addicted to their abuse because it keeps you where you believe that you belong. You can only break free when you realize the truth, which is that this person has just targeted you to get his needs met, and you are getting your needs met in a very toxic way. When you want to be healthy, you say, I need to get out of this. And I need to get my head straight and realize why I thought it was appropriate to be treated in such a degrading, horrific, abusive way. And then you can learn to love yourself and honor yourself enough that the next guy that comes around and on the first date makes some weird comment about you, and rather than brush it off, you say, you know what? I'm going to go. I'm good. I didn't really care for that. And it could be anything. They do it so subtly in the beginning, right?
I was just joking. Like, you're so sensitive. Oh, I was just kidding.
Like it's something like, oh, well, I guess you felt like this was a casual date. Like you didn't have to put yourself together too well. If a man says that to you on the first date, bye, goodbye, because they're testing you. Can they put you down? Can they be dismissive or rude towards you? They're testing the waters. And an insecure woman will be like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought I looked nice. Girl, you do look nice. Yeah. And that guy can go fly away because he's just trying to see if you can be his source to feed his addiction of needing to be abusive and to project things onto others. It's very obvious if you begin to look at it for what it is. They make it so clear early on. You might have a love bomber who like acts perfect for the first 2 months. That's terrifying. That's terrifying because they make you think that they really care. But then once they have you in, then the sort of little jabs start, the cutting you down, the insults, the criticism, the critique, all those things. And you've already gotten close to them. So you're like, what was that? That must have been just a weird.
They're just in a mood.
They're just in a mood. Yeah. That was just a fluke incident. Girl, you got to get out.
You got to listen to this shit because it doesn't. Here's what you learn. And this is like a theme. Every single person that has talked to me, in my experience, we're all like, where's the playbook where are they passing this like playbook around? It's all the same shit. And cause like for a long time, as I was on my healing journey, was like, well, why did he do it? Like, what was the point? I don't understand. Like the valuation, all that stuff. And what I sort of realized was, hold on, no, why did you allow it? You stayed you stayed far too long. And I arrived at a place, when it was finally like, I just literally cannot do this anymore because I feel like I actually felt for my life. Like this isn't going to go well at all. And maybe by accident, there's like, we talk about this, like somebody like drives, like when you put them in, they put you in a car and they drive erratically and and have dangerous behaviors. They're testing you. They're letting you know that your life is in their hands. And like, if that's happened to me, that if someone leaves you, like, hey, we were just all together, or you and I were together and you're mad and now you've abandoned me in this parking lot or in this place and you've left. That is like a whole evil thing to do.
Yes.
And then if they come back and be like, are you done? Are you ready to get in now? Are you ready to, be like, are you done with your little boundary? Really? Because I'm sure you were flexing a boundary that pissed them off.
Yep.
That's abuse.
Yeah.
And that's not going to change. And so I like that you say like they do these little things to see how much you'll take. So like the first time someone leaves you, abandons you somewhere and takes your ability to like get home, you never fucking go back there. You just, and we've like, why do we have this pride? Like, why do we have this belief that we can fix these fuckers?
I mean, I think it's our deficit. We don't believe that we're worthy as we are, that we are unconditionally lovable. We feel like we have to earn love from somebody else. And we look at this person and we're like, well, they need a little work, but if I just do enough, I think that they could really love me. And I think that I can love them into loving me. I can love them into changing, which, as we know, is the biggest lie women have ever told themselves, is you can love someone enough to change them. You cannot. Like I said, these men, they don't even really see you. And that's why it's so fucked up when you leave a toxic relationship, because you're like, Jesus, I spent 3 years with this man and I don't even know if he ever loved me. Not one day of it. I don't know if he ever really saw me. And to your point of like, why did they do this? Like, why the manipulation? Why the gaslighting? My friend got divorced from a man that she found out towards the end he was addicted to porn and spent all their money on porn and then was having an affair with a porn star towards the end. And it was like the biggest mind fuck ever. And she went to her therapist and she's like, why did he do this? Like, I can't figure out the lies. And he's like, well, you need to realize that you can't ask why he did it because he doesn't know why he did it. And you can't ask what he lied about because he even lost track of what was real and what was false.
Oh.
And you have to know that about abusers is it's not like they're like, okay, I'm really going to pull a fast one. They're delusional to themselves. If you go inside the mind of a narcissist or an abusive man, it's a really scary place. It's a really terrifying, lonely, scary place. And that's why they try to escape it constantly. We are meant to be connected with our emotional bodies as human beings. That's the only way to find peace. So we're talking about men that never feel peace. They have to constantly, and that's why when you try to sit that person down, you're like, hey, can you look at me? Can you talk to me? Can you talk to me from your heart? And they can't do it because they're not there. They are not in their heart. They're fully in ego. They're fully in survival mode. They're fully in predatory mode. I need other people to keep me afloat. And that's all we are to them. And they will do whatever they need to that keeps them afloat by using us. And that's why they'll be nice enough to not lose you, but mean enough to keep you under their thumb. And it sounds so crazy when we say it, right? It's like, who would ever do that? Nobody would ever do it. But we have an epidemic right now of this happening across the board. So the best defense that any woman can have is just to keep your wits about you, but also do the work to respect yourself and love yourself and to trust yourself. Because that's the other thing. We believe their lies because we don't trust ourselves. Oh, well, he told me that I'm kind of rude sometimes and I'm kind of impatient. I guess I am. I need to work on that. No, he's lying to you. He's lying to you to make you feel small and to doubt yourself because then he has greater control. That's it.
It's so true because you're being fed a lie and there again, we call this the narc fault. So anything that you've been like vulnerable with them about, they stash away and then they sort of just cherry pick these little things that have happened where it matches the mood or it matches the event or, in a way to further warp your mind. And like we say, it's like the abuse that happens or the way that this rolls out is like insidious. So it's like not all at once that you're like going through this shit and you're like you said, wait, what did they just say? Like, and again, I would say this all the time. I don't have these problems and I'm going to make a little caveat because I've said this before with anybody in my life, but what I've realized, I don't have these problems with any healthy people in my life. I have the same problems with similar people that are very toxic or abusive.
Yeah.
And then I have this like, great, and it goes back to some family members too. But I have these really great relationships with really healthy people where I'm like, okay, this is real. And this is like all their manufactured fucking bullshit and their problem. We say it's not a you problem at all. It's a them problem.
Yeah.
And when you step out of it and you like look back, and I mean, I've been out for a while and it's still on healing, but every day I'm like, I feel really good. I feel like my problems are still there, but I have spent some time really forgiving myself and like loving myself and realizing that, if I want to avoid people like this in my life, I need to be damn sure I'm fucking solid in myself. Because like you said, they'll find you. And then you meet when you're finally at a really kind of decently healed place, they're repugnant. You're like, when you see that, you're like, I want nothing to do with that shit.
Yeah.
And they could be hot as fuck. They could, whatever. Like, it's like, and you're like, no, or like the coolest chick. And you're like, I don't want to be your friend. I don't want to fuck him or be her friend. So how do we, you're in a
great place. And when you get to that place, it's the strangest thing because you're like, how could I ever not feel this way? How could I ever have thought that would be a good idea? And here's the other thing I want to give to women, because we can't deny reality. You're not done until you're done. That's why they say that you have to hit rock bottom in addiction.
Mhm.
And I will say this, with my eating disorder and with alcohol, towards the end, I would do the same things and I would see myself doing it. But what I started doing, and I think this is what finally got me sober, was I started I was like, okay, if I'm going to make this poor choice, I'm going to be aware of it. I'm going to ask myself, why are you doing this? Why are you going home with this man that doesn't care about you? And I would be sitting there saying, I don't know, but I can't not do it. And that's real. There are women who will get out of unhealthy relationships, and that same man with the same charismatic attitude, you're like, I can't say no. And if you can't say no, then for goodness sake, please at least try to be aware and see if you can do this a little differently. We call it this spiral. Sometimes it feels like we're going in a circle, but know that every time you go through an experience, even if it's very similar, you go through it with a different lens. You've learned from your past experience. So for any ladies out there who are like, shit, I think I'm in another unhealthy relationship, but if I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to leave him. I'm not going to leave him right now. Then at least start to notice why you're tolerating it, what's going on for you. Maybe start therapy and start working on it so that eventually you can leave that situation. And next time you will be in that place where you can have that person approach and you will be like, oh no, thank you.
We're
no
all
more of
full
that
here.
merry-go-round. Yeah, because we don't want to lie to ourselves and be like, oh yeah, I would never do that again, ever. If you're going to do it again, at least like be mindful and allow yourself to see it through a different lens so that this can be near to the last time.
That's an important thing to think about, because we were just talking to somebody else who was with a person who had an addiction, and they were like, I'm never going to do this again. And she said that like her therapist at one point was like, someone who comes to you and says like, I'm never going to use again. I'm never going to drink again. It's like, they're full of shit, because they can't, that's way too long. Like, how about I'm not going to drink today. I'm not going to use today. I'm going to, and I'm not going to hit you today. Like, that's a different story. But like, really, if anybody's like it feels more of just like more of this, fantasy bullshit that they put in your face, is like when someone's like, I'm never in my entire life going to do this. You hear a healthy addict that's like one day at a time.
Totally. And that's what you hear people say. I mean, in my 20s, my friends and I every weekend were like, shit, I'm never drinking again. That was terrible. And what are you doing the next Friday night?
Yeah.
You're getting hammered. But it's also true. That's exactly what abusive men say. Oh, baby, I'm so sorry. I would never do that again. That's not me. I love you. Bullshit, lie. The day that I got sober, just like you said, I told myself, I was like, maybe we take a break. Let's not drink today and for a few weeks maybe. And then a few weeks went by and I was like, I think I'll go another month. I didn't do that. I didn't use the never word. I never said, this is it, I'm done. I just kept going with it until I realized that I wanted that more than I wanted to be drinking. I wanted the sobriety. And it was because it's, it's gentle.
Mm-hmm.
I know that we're in a culture, a society that really reveres force and might and grit and all that. And those can be good traits. But when you're working with your emotional body, that's the last thing it needs. Again, you became an addict for a reason, and it was because you didn't love yourself. So you can't try to break an addiction with hate and anger, right? Like, you piece of shit, stop drinking, you idiot. You're going to run to the fucking bar to get away from your own rude commentary, right?
Right. Right.
You got to do it gently. And a lot of people do need support. That's why there's groups. That's why there's, therapists like me who specialize in it. You need people who can love you as you learn to love yourself. They can say, hey, just do it today. You're doing fine. Like, no need to be angry. You did the best you could. Nobody intends to become an addict.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for it. As they say, it's a symptom of they call it a soul wound, of an emotional wound. It's not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
But and that's another reason why people stay in addiction, is because the horrific shame, the feeling of shame, because you can't bear to sit with how you feel about yourself, one, but also the things that you've done in your addiction. And that's why, I did AA for many years, and it was the most humbling experience of my life, because you hear people's stories and what they've been through. And ultimately, the only thing that gets people sober is they have to decide to love themselves regardless of what they've done. Because you realize that you can't get through this world without love. At least you can't be healthy.
Mm-hmm. And so if you've got somebody who's dealing with, you're not loving yourself, so you found yourself in an abusive relationship, and so you're addicted to this chaos, you're addicted to this abuse, you have to understand, and we're like, we really want to inspire women that are newly in a relationship, or younger women who are like, when we say get up and go, I love, you're like, just get up and go. 8 billion people in the world, bitches. You don't need the one that treated you like any nano shit. Just not at all. So it's like, but you need to see, maybe if you're in the dating world, if you're younger, I'm hearing you not like, you should ice yourself until you love yourself. You're going to need to love yourself no matter what. So if I didn't love myself while I was while I was in this relationship, because I had this shame, like, that I was still there, and I was like exposing my family to this. But then because they had addiction issues, they would say, I feel so much shame. I feel so bad. And so then that empathic self would be taking care of them while they were feeling through their shame. And even through their shitty behavior towards me, I would be the one to, walk them through like this, where I'm going, what the hell? Like, how am I'm having to make you feel better. If I loved myself at that time, I would have left. Like, no, I need to be taken care of too,
Yeah.
So it's like, but I'm hearing you say, it's like, you got to love yourself. You got to, and loving yourself isn't egotistical. Having a boundary doesn't make you a bitch. Like, you've got to find yourself at this peace. And I would imagine when you truly love yourself, like, or I know this feeling now that I'm in a healthy relationship, I don't feel addicted to it. Like, if I don't see him work, I'm cool. And I'm like, I love you. I miss you. I love being with you. I hate leaving you. But if we're here or we have some separation, I'm like, I'm really at peace with myself.
Yeah.
And that's a cool feeling.
It's the best feeling. It's the greatest. When you truly begin to feel like you don't need anything, you see the world from such a different perspective. Because, addicted or even just insecure, there's this constant want. There's a beautiful book called Why Women Want. And we're basically set up to feel inferior from the time we're born, because the generations and generations of women have been told, and we're still told, that we're not equals. We're not worth as much, that our voice doesn't matter. So we come into this world believing that we're not going to get the things, what we need. And so we want to be fully expressed. We want to be fully loved and to love, and we feel like we can't. So it's inherent to kind of look and just want to grab and get as much as we can of things. But when you start to let that go and you're like, I don't need any of that. I don't need other people's approval. I don't need all the attention. I don't need all the accolades. And you just start to feel okay as you are. That peace is better than any win you could get, right? Because for all the women out there, you go through times where, you do get a lot of attention and you're like, this, you realize it's never enough.
Mm-hmm.
If you've decided that that's like your barometer for loving yourself, it's never enough. There's no, anything external has an infinite bar. I want to be pretty enough. I want to be smart enough. I want to get enough attention. I want to be desirable. Well, what's enough? If you've decided that there is no enough, then you will never get there. And enough, like not being enough, is like a bottomless bucket. You can fill it with, you have to be the one. Self-love is putting the freaking lid on the bucket, the bottom of the bucket. And you're like, this is all I need.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing more powerful than a woman that doesn't need anything. She's like, that's when you find true love, because someone's like, I really like you. And you're like, yeah, I believe you. Okay, well, let's try this. It's not like, really? You do? You're loving? Show me. Yeah. And that's where I was for so long. But now it's like, I actually believe people when they're like, wow, I'm really interested in you. I'm like, yeah, of course you are. I'm awesome.
Right.
But like you said, it's not ego. It's just, we're all fucking awesome. And we all deserve to feel that way. But we've had it hammered into our brains that like, no, we're not enough. And no, you can't be nice to yourself. And you can't say nice things about yourself. And you're not skinny enough. You're not fit enough. You're not this, that, the other thing enough. And we're constantly like, shying away. We'd actually all be healthier and happier if we just admitted how awesome we are.
Right. No, I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah. So I hope that anybody listening, like, get started on realizing how amazing you are and embracing and seeing like, where are those ties you have?
Mm-hmm.
Where you're like, well, I realize I can't actually feel comfortable unless someone's told me that I did a good job at work, or unless someone told me that I look good today, or you know what I mean? And just recognize, like, what would it take for you to just feel that way intrinsically, to just be able to not need something outside of you to feel at peace and to feel good about who you are and to love yourself. Because that's the last thing I'll say is that when we're doing any of these things, when we're in an unhealthy relationship, when we develop an addiction, it's because we believe that we need something outside of ourselves in order to love and accept ourselves. And that's not the truth. Because what the truth is that even when we're seeking out the approval from a man, we want his love. The only person's approval we really want is our own. Because they can never, it's not like, a guy says he loves you and then, just his approval no, you're looking for you to like flip that switch.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, he loves me. Well, now I love me. No, it can't be conditional. The only way we find true happiness and peace is by, like I said, the bucket thing. It has to be enough. You can't wait. You can't wait until you're loved enough or get enough attention or you're successful enough or have enough money. You can't wait. You have to decide right now, wherever you are, even if you're naked alone in a forest, which is actually pretty awesome.
I know. I was like, that kind of sounds like a fun time.
We should all do that together more often, actually, as women, and embrace like our amazingness. But like, even with nothing, you can realize like, damn, I don't need a single thing to love myself, not a single thing. And also the beautiful thing that I've been able to do as I've started to love myself is you realize the most powerful thing I can do in this world is to love as well, to be a loving, kind presence to others. And you cannot do that when you hate yourself.
Mm.
You can do it to a certain degree, but you have to realize you're only doing it in some regards to get that love to other people or to, escape the fact that you don't feel that for yourself.
Hi, I'm Sarah Wayne Callies, and I played Dr. Sarah Tancredi on Prison Break.
And I'm Paul Edelstein, and I played Agent Paul Kellerman on Prison Break. Please join us on our rewatch podcast, Prison Breaking, with Sarah and Paul.
We're going to have all kinds of guests and never-before-told stories, so follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can subscribe to our watch party on the link there. We can't wait to see you there.
And follow us on Instagram at Prison Break Podcast. See you there.
This can be a journey, besties, that you're on. It's again, don't have to fix it today. You don't, but do something every day. What is like some like little tool we can put in the bestie toolkit for loving yourself?
I'm a big fan of starting and ending your day just with yourself. A moment, just because the beginning of loving yourself is recognizing that you are in there. We spend our whole lives running around we believe that we are what we do. We are our labels. We are our titles. But when you wake up right there, that's you. Whether you call it your soul, whether you connect with your heart, your essence, your being, your spirit, your spirit is not trying to prove anything. It just is. You don't have to go work 12 hours a day to win over the love of your soul or your heart. You don't have to be the perfect mom or the perfect girlfriend or never say anything wrong. You have to look for that peace in you. And I encourage women to visualize this. I always saw it as like a light in my chest, like this light that never changes, even when I have a bad day, even when I act in a way that I'm kind of embarrassed about, because we all do that. But and I think we believe that when we do that, it's like, oh, you were kind of good today, but not now. And now you're less value. There is a part of you that never changes. And it's always of perfect, infinite value and worth, no matter what, no matter what. There's nothing any human being could do that's so egregious that light changes. So, and that's even true for our abusive partners. But like I said, they're not willing to look at that light. They're running from it. They don't believe it exists. That's why you got to connect with it. And you got to recognize, I am starting my day with my hand on my heart. I'm going to take a breath and remember that I am of total worth and value intrinsically, no matter what. It's not conditional. It's unconditional. Start and end your day that way. And then you start to feel your soul. You feel this part of you that's so much bigger than this one lifetime. And the Women Waken podcast is my show. So I'm very esoteric, but this is just one little beautiful experience in this lifetime on planet Earth. It's amazing in so many ways, but it's also very challenging for a soul, because here we believe that we can't know whether or not we're of value and worth, that we have to prove it. So when you start to realize that within you is everything you've ever needed, and that's something that's unchangeable, of total worth and value, you start to feel it. You start to really feel it. You don't have to keep telling yourself it. You start to feel it, and then you start to be that. And that's the best feeling in the world.
Damn, I love it. That is a beautiful tool.
Yeah. We have fun with it. And that's the other thing, have fun, you guys. Life is meant to be fun. And that's the biggest reason to heal, is because it's really hard to have fun when you don't feel at peace with yourself and love yourself.
No, it's not. And it's okay. You can have fun again. You can come out of an abusive relationship and life is good again. And it's like, you're not yesterday. We carry all this giant bag is full of fucking yesterday. And it's heavy shit. Put it down. Be today.
Put it down. And it also helps, whether it's a therapist or, listening to podcasts, but it helps to hear other people who get you and who align with these experiences and have been there and have the same shame and fears and all of that. I run women's groups through my podcast because I believe in the power of women coming together, because women are meant to commune. We thrive on deep soul, emotional connection and, bearing ourselves to others. And there's power in that. There's real power in that. And there's real healing in that too.
I love it. So Whitney, where can our besties find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Women Waken. That's the name of my podcast, which you can find on all platforms. Women Waken. Been doing it for several years. I have almost 400 episodes. And Lindsay's will be out shortly. Her episode will come out, which is a fabulous one. And if you find me on Instagram, I'm also a tarot reader. So if you add me on there and send me a message, I will pull a card for you if you're into that kind of thing.
Oh shit, I'm going to send you a message today.
Hey!
I would love a card. Yeah. Okay. This is awesome. Whitney, I really look forward to having you back on the show. I think you're a baddie, and we welcome you to our BFF club if you'd like to join.
Yeah.
We are bitches fighting for freedom. And let's fighting for ourselves, let's be there for each other. So I love that you have a great community, and we'll all just show up for each other. And thank you so much for joining us today on the show. This has been an absolute pleasure.
So much fun. Round 2 was just as good as the first one. I love that we got to do this, Lindsay. Thank you for having me. I can't wait to be back and to have you back.
Yes, 1,000,000%. Okay, besties, remember, look for Whitney. Love yourself. We love you. We got your back. And we will see you next Tuesday. Bye. Bitches being bad.